Currently we are in section 3 and we are about to check out the 5th video of this section. Well, in this video we will start creating our user interface for simple interest calculator application. For the sake of simplicity, let us break down our application into smaller pieces. So here this whole section will be our column. And within the column we will have several elements, such as the first element as the image, the second element as our text field, third element again a text field. Now our fourth element will be a row, and within the row we will have two elements of text field and drop down, which you can find here within the yellow boxes. Next, as a fifth element we will again have a row, and within this row we will have two same elements of raised button, arranged horizontally in a row, which you can find here within the yellow box. Now in the end we will have one more element of text, which is not visible right now. Now on the top, just above the column element, we will have the app bar. And this whole application will be wrapped with the help of the material app widget that contains home as scaffold, and further the scaffold contains body as container. Pretty simple, isn't it? So let us start creating our user interface. So here, assuming this is my fresh application or a new project. So within the main.dart, let us import our material package and define our main function. Within the run app function, let us define our material app widget with some title and also the home property. Well, as a home I have the SI form, which will be our stateful widget, which I will create down below here. Override the createState method and return the state of our form. So down below here, let us create the state class. Override the build method and define some property which I will use later. Well, so far, all of these code we are already familiar with in this section. What is a main function, how to create a stateful widget, and how to define its state with some properties. Now we have already defined our material app widget. Let us define our scaffold with the body of container. So from the build function, let us return a scaffold widget with a app bar and also a container. It is now time to define our child as column, which will contain all of these widgets. So as a child, define the column, which will further contain the children as the array of widgets. Run the application and see the status. Now here I have some error. Now here I guess I have done some mistake. Instead of returning the form, I have to return the subtype of the stateful widget, that is SI form. Copy it and paste it here and run the application again. So right now we just have a blank application where this section is a column. Well, on the left we have our target application which we have to create in this video itself. So within this column we have our first element as an image. So let's add it. So within my application I will create a new folder of images. Well, how to add the image asset I have already shown you in my previous videos. And then add the image. Well, I have added an image of money.png. If you want to get the same image, then please check the link below the description for the source code. Or else you can add your own custom image of your own choice. Just make sure the dimension of this image is same as mine, so that we both are on the same page. And then our next step will be to create the image asset out of this image. Well, I will again repeat the same steps that I followed in the previous video. Create a function, define the asset image. Now as the asset name, you have to pass the value that you will define within your pubspec.yaml file. So down below in the asset section, simply uncomment it and instead of this use money.png, and make sure just before the assets you have only two space 1 and 2, and here as well 1 and 2. Copy this path or the asset name and paste it as a string value here, and then create an image out of this asset. I will define some width and height, and then wrap the image in a container and return it. Call this function from within our column as a first child. Run the application, get the dependencies. So this is my image in my application. Let us try to center it by adding some margin to our container. Now to provide a constant padding throughout our application, I will define a constant of minimum padding of 5.0 and use it wherever possible within my application, such as I will use minimum padding into 10. That comes out to be 50. Now I will also add a common margin to my container. Well, right now no progress. Let us leave this image as it is, and I will come to that later. Right now let us add our text field down below this image. So as a second element I will have our text field and add some decoration. Using input decoration, here I will use the label text along with the hint text. Run the application. So here our image automatically centered itself, and down below I have a text field which has a label of principal. If you click on it, then you will find the hint text as well. Enter principal example 12,000, like that. Well, to enable user to enter just number, you have to change the keyboard type by using keyboard type text input type dot number. So now my keyboard has changed. Also on the left, if you notice, the text field has some curved border. So let us try to add that border within our text field. So right after the hint text, give a comma and define the border as outline input border, and create a circular border radius with a stroke of 5.0. Perfect. Run the application. Much better, isn't it? Now let us define our next text field for rate of interest. So I will simply copy the text field and right below it paste it and change the label as well as hint. Run the application. There we go, this is our text field. Now let us put some space between these two text fields. So for that I will wrap both the text field into the padding widget and end it here where you find the text field, put a extra bracket. Perfect. And then provide the padding from top and bottom. Give the minimum padding. For the next text field, repeat the same process. Run the application. Much better, isn't it? We got some padding here. Now our next element of the column will be a row. Now this row contains two sub-elements, such as a text field and also a drop-down button. So right below our padding widget or the text field widget, let us add a row, which will be our next element of the column. The first element of this row will be the text field. So I will simply copy it, the text field, from here. Make sure you just copy till the text field bracket. Do not include the padding bracket. Paste it here, give a comma and define your second element as a drop-down. Now the code for drop-down we already saw in our previous video in this section itself. So I will simply type it as quickly as possible. So after adding the code for drop down button, also make sure you modify the text field, label text and also the hint text. Run the application. Well, here our application has crashed just because we have some rendering issue. Remember in the previous section I showed you the expanded widget that whenever you have elements in the row, the elements might overflow out of the screen or beyond the screen. So in that case, you have to wrap these widgets such as text field and drop down button within the expanded widget. So here I will use expanded, and as a child I will pass this text field and make sure you end it here expanded. Similarly here as well, end it here where the drop down ends, and then finally run the application. So here we have elements in place. Let us add some padding between this row and also this widget of text field. Like we did for these two widgets, we added a padding in between. So here let us wrap this row in the padding widget. And down below where the row ends, put an extra bracket. And then add the padding. Perfect. Run the application. So I guess we are good to go. We got some padding here. Now in between these two elements of text field and the drop down, we also need some space. So here what we can do, we can add a container widget with some width in between these two expanded widget. So as a middle element within the row, I will add a container, give a comma and add a width here of minimum padding into 5. That comes out to be 25.0. Run the application. Much better, we got some space in between. Now let us proceed and try to add one more row down below that will contain two raised buttons. So right after this row and also the padding, hit enter and add our element as row. But here I will straight away add the elements in the widget array by using the expanded widget. Define child as raised button. Define the child of the raised button as a text. Also define onPressed property, which currently will do nothing. Now I will simply copy and paste the expanded widget once again as a second element of the row and change the text to reset. And also I will wrap this row in the padding widget so as to get some padding in between the elements of the column. And end it here in the row. Perfect. And then define the padding. So this is the code that I just wrote. Make sure you verify it. And then run the application. So down below we have two buttons in place. And now in order to display the result, here we have to add a text view which is currently not visible within our target application. So let us add it as well. So right after the row, give a comma and add a text by wrapping it within the padding widget. Right now it is just a placeholder text. Run the application. So here we have our text in place. Now proceeding, if you click on any of the text field, then you will find this zigzag tag in the bottom. It simply says that the bottom overflowed by these many pixels. Well, to resolve this, we have a very simple solution. Just below your scaffold, you just have to add resize to avoid bottom padding to false, which was by default true. If you run the application right now, then our application just crashed. So simply terminate the application and run it again. Tap on the text field. Well, that error is gone. But what if on your screen you have a large number of widgets? So in that case, your widgets might overflow out of the screen. And then this attribute will be of no use. It won't be effective. And also, what if your application is running on a device that has a very small screen, such as a 4-inch screen? So there might be possibility that these widgets might not be visible on the screen as they will overflow beyond the screen, right? So what is the solution for that? Now here, as a child of the container, we are using column. What if I replace it by a list view? And then run the application. And notice here that I have simply commented this. Now here, if you tap on the text field, then you can easily reach out to other widgets by simply scrolling it down. Just because we are now using a list view, and all of these elements are now the child of the list view. Perfect. So instead of using column, I have just replaced it by a list view. As simple as that. And then all of these elements will now be a part of the list view, not the column. Well, in this video, we just saw how to break down our UI into pieces and then create it step by step. Pretty simple, isn't it? But right now, our UI doesn't match our target application just because we have to apply some styles and themes to our application.